Guess I should start by not only kind of disclosing, but really confessing to the fact that when you put up your graph in terms of distribution of firms, I think Compartamos, as many other peers in the microfinance industry, we've been struggling with that extreme of firms that are one people or two people, micro entrepreneurs, and trying to provide financial services for them. In a sense that I think after many years, we've now, almost all of us have come to realize this is mostly subsistence microenterprise. And I think that a lot of the issues that come out of that, in the sense of we've, I think, worked for many years under the assumption that the push towards bigger value-added microenterprises was going to come as a very straightforward result of what we were doing. I think the evidence today is not showing that that is happening exactly. Fortunately enough, I think that we're now understanding better that the microfinance industry is a lot more about financial inclusion and about smoothing consumption and investment and shock absorption. But in fact, I think we've done a very bad job in terms of actually serving that missing middle, promoting that missing middle and then serving it. And I think to an extent, going back also to Ricardo's forest, I think it's kind of a different tree. I mean, I think for a lot of us, we've come to realize that the way that we're doing these $200 or $300 loans, in many ways, is a different tree than doing this small and medium lending. What I think, even though it's a different tree, I think it's a tree that's nearby. So I do think that the microfinance industry is strategically positioned to actually jump to that tree if we understand what it takes to jump to the other tree. And I think your work is seminal in that sense, to really understand what has happened. And if you go back and look at what happened in the microfinance industry in the early 70s with the pioneers, Acción and Grameen and many others, I think they came from an angle where you had traditional banking lending on base of assets and collateral. And clearly you had a population that lacked assets and collateral or just property of those assets. So methodologies were invented and were innovated to deal with that. And basically, we shifted from basing a loan decision on assets to a loan decision based on reputation, which is sort of a personality trait, but it's not really a personality trait. It's more your standing within your social community. And it worked. It clearly worked because the microfinance industry has grown and is serving now hundreds of millions of households, even though scale is still lacking for the demand. But I think that's the exact lesson is, if we went from assets and we went to reputation, what do we need? What's the nut we need to crack to get to the missing middle? And I think, you can call it personality, you can call it character, you can call it talent. Dr. Gonzalez, who's here as well, has done a lot of work on talent and how can that be a predictor of growth for an SME. But in fact, I think it's moving towards that, towards finding really what the loan decision is for the small and medium enterprise. I think, when I think about this, it draws me back to a little story because, in fact, Compartamos at one point was a small enterprise. I mean, I can remember 16 years ago or more when, we were about 50 people. We're now 10,000. So clearly something happened in between. But back then, when we were struggling for first round of financing from anyone, we had a couple of now good friends, coming from international financial institution, sitting down with us. And like entrepreneurs, we were very much spending our time developing a product and walking the streets. And I mean, honestly, didn't devote much time to anything else. So when it came to going through a due diligence process, it was kind of an embarrassing process in a sense, not only because we didn't have training as bankers, but because we were so focused on getting the products ready. And we went through that. It was painful. And in our view, I guess we didn't feel we were very successful, but we got the funding.